I'd like to call the Finance, Audit, Tendering, and Administration Committee to order Wednesday, September 6, 2023. Welcome, members. Have the agenda, order of business, called to order. Declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest? None? Thank you. Approval of agenda.
Mr. Chair, just on the approval of the agenda, we don't have new business there.
No, we can,
I just want to add a notice of motion. And the reason I want to add a notice of motion because it's a new item.
go ahead.
And the notice of motion is that the city of, well, first of all, our Finance and Administration Standing Committee look for the funding for an additional 6 police officers. Because in the KPMG report that was submitted to us last year, they recommended 12 additional police officers. I'm asking that we can at least start the process, hopefully find something if it's available in this year's budget, but if not, it's going to go forward. That's a notice. That doesn't require a seconder either, sir.
Pardon me?
It doesn't require a seconder.
Okay, and would also like to add under new business, if I could, there's the overfunding of tax collection from the province that we talked with last year, the $3 million overpayment. We've had some correspondence from the province on that, and would like to talk about the reschedule of the repayment of those funds. Betty French, our finance manager, will speak to that.
And can I just ask for clarification? You're looking for finance to go and find some money to be able to come back to us to look at whether or not we're going to be able to look and explore those options for policing? Is that what you're?
Well, a notice of motion is just a notice, but to give you clarification, it's to search through our financial statements, our financial revenue and expenditures, and to find out if there is money, but it would have to be a recommendation, I think, that would have to come from the Standing Committee for Protection and Emergency Services. So this is the reason for the notice of the motion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving along. Adoption of the minutes. The minutes were circulated in your package, the August 9th, 2023 minutes. Are there any issue with the minutes of August 9th, 2023 meeting? Move for adoption of those minutes. Moved and seconded by Councillor Drown. Thank you. Item 5, EDI training for elected officials. There's report and information again circulated in your packages. Trust you've had time to read it, and I believe Sue Fraser will take the lead on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will, as you've noted, everyone has a copy of the report. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. It's pretty straightforward. It's not very much money. It's in the budget. It's something that councillors had asked for when we did the initial onboarding, so we did an RFQ on it. Until we have some guidelines around the amount of money that needs to be vetted through committee to council for this type of work. It was the CAO's preference that we just vet everything through, even though it's only $3,400. So I don't know, Betty, if maybe during the procurement bylaw exercise we'll address minimum amounts, but hopefully we can do that so we're not jamming up finance with these small amounts of budgetary items going through. So we had a good response to the RFQ. I had another staffer assist me in the evaluations. We both came to the same final conclusion with respect to awarding to HRX, and they can do it remotely or they can do it on site, but it's good value for the dollar, and it'll be something that can happen for you sometime in late fall.
Thank you for that, Sue. Councillor McCabe?
I just want to say thank you because I think this is really valuable with our progressive community today, and it'll give us all some more clarity and information on how to be respectful and to make sure we're looking at things through a bunch of lenses. So good. I'm excited. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Sue Fraser. We good on that? Okay, item 6 on the agenda.
You need a motion for that? Yeah, I'll move it.
And I'll
Okay,
second
moved and
that.
seconded by Councillor McCabe. Thank you. All right. Moving on to item 6, the terms of agreement with Kerry. Again, Sue Fraser will speak to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to draw you back to the August meeting of council, where there was a request from Kerry for the city to provide its position on how we move forward in the negotiation, or how they move forward in the negotiation with the Seniors Active Living Centre on a new lease agreement, as the current one is set to expire in December. And it was the city's position at that time, in that August meeting, that through finance, that we would enter into an agreement with Kerry directly on a 20-year lease for the $15,000 that we currently give to the Seniors Active Living Centre as a city corporation. So Kerry reviewed that at the board level. They are coming back to us with respect to the terms and conditions outlined in the resolution, and asking what I feel are an amenable resolution to continue to move this forward, in that they are asking that we do a 5-year, instead of a 20-year term, we do a 5-year term with a renewable of an additional 5 years, that we have it for the $15,000 per annum, but also add in the common area charges that everyone pays, and the common area charges would be another $75 plus HST per year. So that would be a net increase to us of a little over $8,000 in our budget for next fiscal, because this agreement would be signed off in January, so we could pay that in the next fiscal, so that there's no impact on this year's budget, but unless they want us to pay, we could pay the $630 per month for January, February, March, and not have it significantly impact our budget. But this is what they came back to us with and said this is what we would be amenable to doing, and it's outlined in the 4 bullets that are under the staff recommendation, so that we can continue to move this forward, and the Seniors Active Living can continue to enjoy the facility rent-free, and the net cost to the city is not substantive.
Thank you for that, Sue. Councillor Drown?
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor McAleer. I'm just wondering, on this board, who appoints the board? Do we appoint the board? So we appoint 4 members, and then where's the other members come from?
The chair, through to you, Councillor Duran. The board makeup has 1 person from the university, 1 person from the town of Stratford, 1 person as appointed by Kerry board itself. It's usually someone from the Wiseman's Club, because they had contributed capital funds in the early days. Actually, there's 2 Kerry reps, and then there's a second one. There's usually one that's a Wiseman, then there's second Kerry one, and then there's 4 city ones, with one of them being the chair.
Okay,
Am I
so-
correct? I'm just trying to go who's on the table, around the table in my head, and I
No,
think
that's-
because Sean Murphy is the current chair, and he's a city appointment, and then Wayne Long is a city appointment, as is Mike James, and who am I missing? Donna Prophet.
Done profit. And Councillor Drawn, the chair is appointed by the city,
Okay?
and that's the position. And there are only 8 members.
Sure.
It's not an uneven number, so,
So he doesn't get to vote, he's just like a chair.
Really, that's right.
So that's 7. So, and then we're responsible for 87% of the debt, is that how that works? With Stratford and Cornwall being the other? No?
not Cornwall.
Not Cornwall.
Okay.
The town of Stratford, Mr. Chair, through to the councillor, the town of Stratford's only on board, and I shouldn't say only, they're on board annually for a prescribed amount of money that just changes by cost of living. So I think it's about $17,000 or $18,000, regardless of the operational shortfall. In early days, they were on board for 10, I think then it went to 15, and now it just increases annually by cost of living. And then the rest of the shortfall, after that's pulled off, the operational shortfall at year end, is split 87-13 between the city and UPEI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I understand that, and I understand we discussed this at the last month's meeting. You know, we were unanimous, we approved it, it went to council, council approved it, it goes back to the board, and they say, no, we don't want that, and we want more money. So it comes back to finance again, and we're supposed to sit here and say, okay, you know what, you asked for more money? Is it up to us to say yes or no, and then we have to prove it on back up to council? Like we discussed this last month, we thought we were doing the seniors a good deal. We agreed to pay the money. You know, I just don't understand how it's coming back to us again, looking to do the same process. And I know every year that, you know, Kerry or any other entity like Eastlink, they come in, they look for money. We don't question what they want. We sit down and we decide what has to be fixed, what should be given. But I don't know why we're looking at this again when we had a resolution of council to agree to do this. So, you know, I'm not in favor of looking at this again and wasting more time. I just, maybe I'm speaking out of line, but I don't agree with this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Drong. And I guess certainly understand, I guess, where you come from. And I guess the Kerry board itself, I guess it's mandated, and I think Sue and maybe your worship, not sure, Councillor McCabe, but I understand with Kerry, they kind of have a mandate of that board is to run that facility somewhat in a cost recovery kind of basis, and I guess, you know, that's kind of their mandate. So I guess this is a negotiation that's somewhat coming back to us, to council, and has to be, you know, it has to be a decision, I guess, here as to, do we, I guess, have to put this probably back to council again, or can the committee hear?
Well, it's just, oh, you asked the question?
Oh,
No, it's just that, something like, you know, we're arguing over, well, we said 15,000, they want 7,000 more. I'm going back to, you know, they figured, well, due to COVID, we should have 400,000 to pave the paving, and we gave that, and then it came back, well, the pool broke, and then that was hundreds of thousands, if not millions. So, I mean, we're talking about $7,000. You know, council gave a resolution for this amount, and I just don't understand why we're negotiating, or why did we pass a resolution? Why didn't we enter in negotiations ourselves? It just doesn't seem fair to me.
Sue, can you?
I totally appreciate, through the chair to you, Councillor Drawn, I totally appreciate the frustration with respect to this coming back, circling back around again. I guess the mitigating factor here is that it was at this table that we added language in. The intent to coming to you was to enter into a process that we haven't done before, where we would enter into a mutually beneficial agreement directly with Kerry to make sure the Seniors Active Living Centre weren't paying anything. That was the intent of the exercise. That's what the board had asked us to do. They said, you know, they basically said, you guys are running interference on our arrangements with the tenant, in all fairness. That's what was happening. We were getting involved in the affairs of a tenant out at Cary and assuring them that they were never going to have to pay rent because somebody once upon a time promised them that. And we were trying to honor that in good faith because they're a valued tenant out there. But Carrie was saying, if you're going to be directly involved, then give us your position on how we move forward with you. So when I came to the table with a report, I didn't come in with 20 years. I didn't come in with 15,000 fixed, nothing else. That was all added on this floor before it went to council chambers for a resolution. So that's why the board's giving a little bit of pushback on this, because they didn't ask for the council to decree exactly what was going to happen in a resolution before we even went to the table with them to talk about what was mutually agreeable, because they are being run as a separately incorporated body. And we are a majority shareholder. Everybody recognizes that, and everyone also recognizes that every time there's a shortfall, we step up, as Councillor has said. Every time there's capital monies being sought for improvements, city's at the table. I know for a fact the city corporation has never said no to Cary. And so that's understood. But in this particular scenario, we set out circumstances in that resolution that they weren't amenable to. They didn't agree to any of that. So that's why we're back at the table.
So just,
Councillor Drong?
again, so they say they're not, and no ill respect, I'm just trying to go through and question this. So they're not amenable to what we say. So we're sitting here saying, okay, you know, we'll pay them that. So why do they get to dictate to us what we have to pay them? You know what I mean? Like, we had a resolution, we said that's what we're paying. Now they come back and they say, no, we're not agreeing to that. So now we want you to pay, I think they were looking for 37,000 last month. Now they're come back and they say, well, we'll take 7,500. And to me, council spoke, we said no, we said moving forward, this is what we want. And now they said, well, we don't accept that, so we want this now. There's 4 new bullets. I didn't think we were in negotiations, you know, with all due respect. You know, I don't think that. And I'm not willing to say, okay, we'll put it on this budget or next month's budget. You know, I thought we came up with a pretty good, you know, solution to take the stress away from the seniors, and we'll negotiate it moving forward. You know, I just don't understand how someone or a board can dictate to us what we're paying. So, you know, that's my interpretation of it. I felt council, you know, gave a strong message of a full council vote of 10-0. I just don't understand it, and my frustration is here, so I apologize. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I can
ahead.
just address that one piece. I understand what you're saying, Councillor, with respect to what appears to be them dictating, but I guess where this all came from was us dictating to them that there's a tenant in their building that we don't want to have to pay rent. That's where all this started from. So what they're coming back with is a counter offer. They're not trying to dictate to us what it is that comes back to council. This is what their ask was in the letter that's in your package. This is their ask from the board that we reconsider and come back to council with this. That's their ask. So it's not dictatorial in nature. I don't think that's the intent, but it's all based on the premise that the city corporation dictated to them that the Seniors Active Living Center shouldn't ever have to pay rent.
I need some clarification, Chair.
Councillor McCabe?
Okay, and I agree that they shouldn't have to pay rent, so it's good that we're trying to find solutions. I guess I'm trying to understand, is this a separate grant from the grant we already provide, Carrie? So this is all included? Would this be a separate, because I'm seeing now they want the city to pay directly to Carrie. Did we used to give the money to the seniors? So we used to provide a grant, basically, to the seniors, who would then use that money to pay. Carrie's increased their rent for the seniors, so the 15,000 wasn't going to cover it, which is why all this negotiation started, is that correct? But we're 87% of the shareholder with 4 reps on the board. I'm just trying to understand this, because we don't have a grant appeal process. We've had other organizations that have come back, weren't happy with the money that they were provided, have come back, and we haven't really listened because we don't have an appeal process for any kind of grant money. So I'm a little bit confused why we're here, especially as 87% of shareholders, and of all people, that we should be looking at making sure we're providing opportunities and services and supporting is our senior population. It can't cost that much money for the room.
Sue?
Thank you, Councillor. There's a number of questions in there, so you'll have to come back to me in case I've missed any of them. The $15,000 that we're referencing here was an annual grant that the Seniors Active Living Centre got every year from the city. And out of that, they didn't have to pay rent at all. Their agreement for ever and a day, and the 5 options to renew since the place was built, was for $1 rent and then common area charges. So their common area charges would have added up to probably about $3,000 or $5,000 tops as the cost of living went up. So the remaining money just resided with them. So because that agreement expires, there's no more options to renew. It expires in December. They were back to the drawing board with a clean slate with a new lease agreement, and we intervened and said, we don't want you to ever have to pay rent. So that's what happened in August. City took over the responsibility of negotiating with Kerry, but we set out very specific terms and conditions in our resolution that Kerry hadn't agreed to. That's what happened.
But now they're wanting $15,000 when they were getting, really, they were only getting $3,000 or $4,000. So now they want us to pay $15,000 to Kerry, and the seniors are getting nothing?
So basically what they're saying is that the Seniors Active Living Centre was getting the 15 to pay the rent, to pay the rent and their common area charges, but they were netting about $10,000 a year from that didn't have to go to rent. So what was suggested in the last go-around in August was that we would take that $15,000 that we had for the Seniors Active Living Centre and give it to Kerry directly. That was the resolution, was to just give it to Kerry directly. So it's a wash for us. It's just who we're giving it to. That's all that changed.
Is Kerry going to provide lunch for the seniors when they come in and do their little activities? Because I'm sure that there was other expenses overriding putting their bum in a chair.
Yeah, so,
Councillor Drown?
sorry with that, but I mean, if they were only giving 5,000 for their common areas, so we took it over directly, now we're giving them 15,000 directly, which would be a $10,000 profit. You know, they're going up 10 plus asking for another, so that they'd be going up 17, if you know what I mean, right?
And the seniors get nothing.
And the seniors go back to getting nothing.
Is that, but am I understanding it when he explains it that way, that's how it is now?
Well, I mean, if you were to look at a level playing field out there, every other tenant in that building is paying rent and common area charges. So what Kerry's trying to do is just treat all of their tenants fairly in a level playing field. And the Seniors Active Living Centre has been, since the beginning of the opening of that facility, been the exception to the rule. And the Kerry board is trying to level the playing field so that all their tenants are being treated fairly. To Councillor Drawn's point, his math is absolutely correct, that based on the agreement based on the resolution from the last meeting, they're still up money from what they would have gotten the last 20 years. But basically, they feel, if I'm representing the chairman's comments to me, is that if anybody else was in there, they'd be paying $35,000, $40,000 a year plus common area charges. If Andrews took over that part, or if another private company came in there and used that space, they'd be in $40,000, $50,000, which would reduce the operational shortfall we have to pay at the end of the year. So it's not like, Kerry's taking this money and having a party. They're taking this money and applying it to their overall revenue stream at the end of the day. So all the parties at the table pay less money at the end of fiscal.
But we're still, a lot of their tenants would be for-profit businesses that would be in there, like hockey school and some of these it's for profit. They're making more than $8,000. I can pretty much guarantee that. And that $8,000 isn't a whole lot of money a year to operate something for our senior population who really, what else do we do for that group? And if someone can tell me what else we can do to supplement that, then I'm all ears.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Mayor Brown?
Yeah, so I have the budget here for the Bell Alliance 2023, 2024. Just going through the chair to Sue, ice rental, swim instruction, municipal provincial tax rebate, public swims, water slides, swim clubs, sports pool rentals, swim programs, advertising, signage, sponsorship, bar revenue, wage subsidy, merchandise sales, training, locker rentals. What are the rentals do they have there? They have the seniors. Is the health club a rental for them? You know, that's just above the pool?
Mr. Chair, through to your worship, are you referring to the UPI Fitness Center?
Yeah.
Yeah, they pay rent.
Where is it at? Where is it in the?
Commercial tenants revenue. It doesn't show in the operational budget because the money that we get from out at Carey from all of the different rentals goes into Carey's share to capital projects. So if you see when the capital project requests come in during the budget process, you see capital project costs. If the capital projects add up to $1 million, then Carey contributes around $200,000. From its annual allotment from commercial tenants revenue, and then the 87-13 split between UPEI and the city happens after that Carey share is taken off the top.
So for accounting purposes with our manager of finance here, shouldn't that be part of the operating revenue? Like that should show up. Like I'm looking through the revenue and the expenditures, and it's not on page 1 or page 3. So where does it capture the revenue from just what you told us about? Where is that captured in the budget?
Mr. Chair, through to the mayor, when you look at the audited statements for Carey, it's represented in a separate section because, as I said, it's applied against capital. So it doesn't show up as part of the, if it showed up in that operational budget document that you're looking at,
Yeah.
then it would misrepresent or miscue the annual grant being asked of the city and UPEI, because it would misrepresent the projected operational shortfall.
So there's the UPEI Health, is it called the UPEI Health Club? Is that what it's called? Fitness Club? And what other rentals are there? The restaurant, the Subway?
There's the Subway restaurant.
Yeah.
There is the rental space that Andrews occupies. There's 3
Yep.
different leases there. There's Frizzle's skate sharpening downstairs. And there was a rental above Andrews that I think is being subletted now by another party. There's golf simulators and such up there, I
Yeah.
believe now. And I think that's it.
Okay, so could we, Betty, through the chair, Betty, could we get the amount of revenue from those commercial tenants? I'd like to have that, like to see that. Again, when I see revenue, and if we're talking about rentals, and we're talking about renting to our seniors, which was never set up to do that, it should be here. It should be in our revenue. If it doesn't, it should be extrapolated from that 87%, 13% share that you talked about earlier.
But your worship, my point is it's not applied against the operational shortfall. It's applied against the capital. That's how it's always been set up. So that Carey always has money on the table for capital, because up until recently, Carey never had to, you check the books here, Carey never had to come to the city for capital money because it used its own capital money from the commercial tenants revenue to pay the bills for capital. And it's only in recent years when the facility asset started getting diminished that it had to come to the table for money from the city at all.
So I'm looking at Bell Alliance Center for 2023, 2024 capital budget, $845,000 Total Bell Alliance Center is 845, less external partner funding, 164,000. Total Bell Alliance net of external funding, 680,000. Where'd that come from? The external. Is that from us?
I'd have to look at that, Your Worship. I'm a visual. I don't know what you're looking at.
I thought we said we were going to have some presentations where they'd come to present and talk to the committee anyway. I remember having those conversations with some of these outside groups that were partners, the accountability piece, that we would be briefed and updated on a more regular basis. I don't think we've ever had that, and I really think that it's important that we do, so we all understand what's.
Not to belabor this, Mr. Chair, but the 15,000 that was in the original agreement was given to the Seniors Active Living Center. From that, they paid their common area maintenance, which we thought was 15,000. But in their last report, Kerry showed us that they were paying 7,800 for common area maintenance. So they were keeping the other 7,200. No problem. Now it's 15,000 plus the 7,000. It's going to be, there it is right there, $7,575 plus HST. So all I'm asking is, the original deal was, what did we suggest? Councillor, what did
It
we?
was 15,000, wasn't it?
Yeah. Do you see that?
Yeah, it doesn't explain the commercial tenants.
No, but-
in this, how it's presented here, because that's not how Kerry presents its financials. So in our audited statements that we get from Kerry, it would show it properly.
But for both you and our manager, total Bellaline Kerry net of external funding, 680,000. Where does that come from?
I'm assuming, Your Worship, since it's in our budget book, that's the 600 that we set aside.
That's it. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So we do, and then if I can just go back to one other item, Mr. Chair. If we look at the 23-24 budget, it says operating grants from the City of Charlottetown, 985,000 for 2023-2024. The year before, 22-23, was 800. So we increased it by 185,000. You know what? I know our Director of Community Services has put a lot of work into this issue, but I think this issue is playing out too long. Like, let the seniors just enjoy what they have out there. Look, Councillor Duran, I don't know what you're recommended. Are you recommending to stay the course of what we passed at the last meeting? Is that what you're planning to do?
Yeah, I fully support that. I mean, like you say, I knew it was 900 and some thousand, I think it was last year that we gave to Kerry, right?
This year it's 985. Last year it was 800. So
Yeah.
we're up by 185.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm fully prepared to put a resolution or whatever, just to keep it the way we did it last month and stay the course of the 15,000. That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
And I hope the seniors are listening and come forward for a grant next year.
Sue?
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure I'm understanding the direction here. In the report, the committee recommendation, if differing from staff, has to be stated. So the committee recommendation going to council will be that the resolution from August remain the same, that there not be that there not be consideration given to the Kerry request. Is that what the recommendation of this group is? Because it still has to go to council.
Just one second.
Councillor Drumm?
Why does it have to go to council? Like, if we passed a resolution of council last month and someone doesn't like it and comes back, why do we have to pass it back up again? Can we not say at this that we're not entertaining that? Or, we'd be here all year if everybody wasn't happy with what we decided and come back again. So why, I know the committee, does it have the power to say no? Or do we just have to keep coming back? We go to council and council says, okay, we agree with the committee's recommendation not to go ahead. And then Kerry comes back next month and says, well, okay, we'll take 5,500. So then it's got to come back up through the committee, through the council again? Like, is that, I think this is ridiculous that we have to keep going back over the same thing that the council gave full resolution to.
And I think the thing that, again, that can't be kind of lost on us here is that the board does have a mandate of how to run that facility, I guess, on a basically, somewhat of a business model, cost recovery model. And the existing agreement has been in force for some time. Should there maybe not be a second thought given here as to somewhat of an incremental increase in what we're, in what we're proposing? Well, what we're proposing is 15,000, status quo.
But that is an increase.
Pardon me?
That is an increase already, right? They've increased from, say, they received 6,500. Now they're getting 15,000 because we used to give the grant to the seniors who would pay the common area fee. So now they're getting that extra money, and now they're still looking for more money. I'm in total support of saying, if we have to bring this to council, that we are not willing to look at any more money at this time. We don't have an appeal process to what we give out in grants, and stick to the 15,000.
Just for a point of order on all of this, I'm still recommending that you acknowledge that this committee is a recommending body, and that no one else on the council has seen the Kerry letter saying that we're disputing your decision to enter into language in a resolution that we didn't agree to up front. So I would caution you against, and I understand what Councillor Drawn's saying, is that we can't keep circling back to things once a resolution's passed, but what do we do with this letter from Kerry saying you gave us, you set up a resolution that we hadn't agreed to, and now we're asking for some flexibility around how we proceed with the next lease agreement, and we're just shutting it down here?
Well, I think we need to move.
With that advice, I would recommend it go back to council.
I don't think it has to necessarily be a resolution, but I think something needs to be said on the council floor with respect to a letter from Kerry saying that we would like to have some flexibility from that August 14th resolution on moving forward. And the other councillors might be of the exact same mind as you and say, no, we made a resolution, we're fine with our resolution, carry on.
Yeah. Mr.
I
Chair-
agree.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, can I just clarify something? This lease agreement, Sue, is a new lease agreement. This lease was never there before, right? So and were these lease agreements in 5-year increments or 10-year? Do you recall?
They were 5-year because they had the first 5 years when the building opened, and then they had 3 options to renew, which were for further 5 years, so they had 20 years of no rent because of their options to renew of 5 each.
Right. Well, I think you were at the meeting that you and I attended that board meeting, and I thought that I made it quite clear. I don't want to see a 5-year agreement. I want to see a 20-year agreement. So I want to make sure that it's not a 5-year agreement, it's a 20-year agreement. And as Councillor Drawn, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Drawn, but it was 15,000 that would go to Kerry, correct? And that would cover their common area maintenance, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So now instead of 985,000, it's $1 million
Yeah,
that we're contributing.
exactly.
Anyways, that can be reflected in the minutes, and you can speak to it, Mr. Chair.
So can we,
Absolutely, and if it needs
Fine,
to be
do that,
discussed
so
at the
we have
next
a-
level, for sure, because, yeah, there might be different perspectives somewhere.
No, I think Mr. Chair, I think I'm not the queen of protocol here. So the CAO, when she comes back, can correct me on this, and I'd be happy if she did, because I don't want us to go down the wrong path here. I don't think we need necessarily a resolution or anything moving forward. I think there just needs to be a conversation that when you're presenting your report, You say, we've received a letter from Kerry, these were their concerns, and if someone wants to put a resolution on the floor that supersedes the one from the preceding months, then someone has the prerogative to do that. I just think the other councillors need to be informed that there was a letter from Kerry asking for reconsideration of some of the language in the last resolution.
And just a point of order, Mr. Chair. So last month, we did pass a resolution, correct? Right. So are we willing to rescind the resolution from last month?
Isn't that the discussion that would be
That's
on
the
the?
discussion. Do you want to rescind the
That would be
motion?
the question. I'm not going to rescind it here,
Councillor Drawn?
but I think what Sue is saying is it's not up to the three of us to determine whether or not we're going to rescind the resolution. That would be up to a full council decision who made the decision to pass the resolution on the original agreement.
Right. So we passed a resolution. Council endorsed that resolution at the regular monthly meeting in August. We're being asked to rescind the resolution from August. We've already said no. So in the minutes, it'll be reflected. There was a decision not to rescind the August resolution in regards to the $15,000 grant, not to the seniors, but to Kerry. And if someone stands up and says, no, I want to take that on, I want to put a resolution on the floor to rescind it.
Absolutely. There'd be option for that during a council meeting.
Yeah.
That's how I'd understand
Thank you.
that to happen as well.
That seems reasonable until further notice.
Thank you, Sue, on that. Okay. So we're good on that for now. All right, we'll go to item 7, monthly financial statements. Information's been circulated in your package. Betty French is here to answer any questions. Any highlights, Betty, that you'd like to share with us?
The July monthly financial statements are included in your package there. That's the first 4 months of our fiscal year, so we're now a third of the way through our fiscal year. Revenue in total looks completely on track at 33.68%, is about as close to a third as you can get. The expenditures are all listed out there, and depending on the department and the nature of their business over the course of the year, not everything is evenly throughout the year, but we are under our 1/3, which is a good thing because over the winter we have certainly higher expenditures there. So things look like they're quite on track there from what I'm observing. Water and sewer is somewhat similar. Our revenue is 32% of what the budget is. The expenditures are 20% of what the budget is. That is on the low end. Exactly why that is, I don't know, but there may be expenditures that it takes a bit more time for them to flow through our financial statements. But things look on track. And if there's any particular questions or more information that anybody wants in any particular area, I'm happy to take those questions, or if you want to email them to me, I can answer them that way as well.
Chair, I have a question.
Mayor Brown?
Betty, I'm just going through the budget for Charlottetown Water and Sewer. And you probably don't have it there. But it's the wastewater treatment fees. It's in the budget. And I don't see it there as. It's not, his water and sewer operating revenue is just one line, right? But in the budget, there is a wastewater treatment fees. That's, I believe, that's the amount Stratford pays pays the city of Charlottetown or the water and wastewater utility to treat their wastewater. Do we know if we are collecting? Is that the only revenue we're collecting from Stratford, or are we collecting like per household in Stratford for their wastewater treatment? Do you know that? You may not.
Through the chair, through to your worship, I don't know that specifically offhand, but I would be happy to look into it and get back to you.
Yeah, because when I look through the Stratford, Town of Stratford budget, they have water, metered fees, and they also have wastewater fees. I thought I had it up there. So there appears, I think there's a little bit of friction still between the municipality of Stratford and Charlottetown about this fee that we're collecting. But is that a fee on top of per unit that we're also charging Stratford residents for treating their wastewater? Is that clear? Do you understand that?
Yes, I will get details on how the Stratford revenue piece and billing works. Absolutely, sure.
And on the, if I look at where it says, city revenue less expenditures, it's our bottom line, it says for 2023, we're at 4 million, 4.5 million, see that?
Yes.
So I've asked this before, then you go down and prior year operating surplus deficit, so it's in brackets, it's the same amount. So you get it down to zero. Is that creative accounting?
Yes.
I say,
So what,
I say that, Betty, because, look, I appreciate the work that, look, the numbers we're getting now, Councillor McAleer, compared to in the past, we're really up to date, and I appreciate what the department's doing. So I'm not trying to paint you into a corner, but I think fiscally for the first 4 months, we're on board, as you said, correct? That's all I want to know.
that is correct.
Correct.
And certainly how to apply that prior year operating surplus to, like, basically what we're saying is we're going to use that surplus to fund part of this year's budget, but we don't yet need to use that surplus. So
No.
at the moment, because it's in brackets, it's kind of like saying, well, that's available to carry forward to next year, but it won't really be.
No.
I've purposely brought it down to a zero, to a balanced budget, and yes, I adjust
yeah.
that number
No, I-
accordingly. So what we're saying is budgeted, we can spend $6.3 million of the surplus that we were expecting to have, but so far, we have an extra 4.5 million that we
Yeah.
haven't yet
Yeah.
needed. So we're bringing in revenue faster than we're spending it,
Yeah.
which is a good position to be in, but by year end, it will be a different picture.
And just on that, I was asked by a resident, and I'm not big on reserves, but we do have a post-retirement reserve, correct?
Yes.
And we do have a sick leave payout reserve, because our sick leave, I think, is it based on 75 days? Or something like that, Sue? Yeah. So we do have a reserve for sick leave payout?
I don't know that it's actually called a reserve, but we have money set aside for that. It would be more in an accrual for that, not a deferred revenue, but we do have a pot of money for those things. And
Okay.
those are things that we get, depending on which one it is, we get some actuarial information on that lets us know how much we
Okay.
have to set up for that.
Well, I just want to say, Mr. Chair, this is my favorite part of the meeting, when I look at the numbers and Betty can explain them to us. So thank you, Betty.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Betty. Any, Councillor Drown?
Just a question for the mayor. You were asking about, is Stratford paying for each and every household? Are we not, wasn't the original agreement that we made just for 15% of the flow coming over to Charlottetown?
And Councillor Drawn, that's what I want clarified. That's all I want. I know there was an arrangement that was put together.
Yeah.
I know it started in the previous council of 2014 to 2018, and then when the work started in 2019. And you, as chair of this standing committee, would probably know better than I do, because I never really looked at it as something that, is it an extra, and then we do get per door or per unit wastewater fees? I just want to get that clarified.
through the chair, yeah, I believe the government of the day, we were looking at a certain number, and they determined that it would be 15% of the flow coming into the Charlottetown treatment plant, but there could be a couple other alterations to that agreement, I guess, if Betty could contact Richard, but that was my understanding of it when we passed it, so.
Yeah, and I have, sorry, Mr. Chair, if you look here, it says here, metered sales sewer for the town of Stratford, budget 2023, 2024, 1.7 million. That's just for metered sales water, metered sales sewer, 1.7 million. So are they must be, I just want to clarify.
Sure, no problem.
Because if that's the case, then I know there's been talk by some members in town of Stratford, why do we have this surcharge? Well, if we're not collecting anything, then, you know, our facility's still being used, and we have services that are providing, like labor that's making that service work for them.
Well, exactly. Again, through the chair to the mayor, you know, we're putting out $1 million to clean one of our machines, digesters down there this year, and we'll need another $1 million for next year. So, I mean, there's a cost to all this, but that'll be answered through the chair.
And again, Councillor Drawn, I know I could have asked you the question, but I just wanted to get it from a financial perspective. And she will ask the manager of water and wastewater, Mr. Richard McEwen.
Thank you. Betty, for the timely and accurate reporting of our finances. Wonderful. Any other questions, Betty, at this time? No? Thank you, Betty. Tenders, RFP, RFQs, the information there in your package. Any questions on those numbers, information to Betty? I'm taking that
No,
as,
just I don't know if our
Mayor Brown?
director knows, Sue, or the manager, but under redevelopment of Queen Street Parkade, it closed on August 31st. How many submissions did we receive? That would be public information.
I don't have an answer for that, Mr. Chair, through to your worship, but we can find that out.
okay.
No. Thank you.
You circle back to Mayor Brown on that? Thank you. Okay, we're good on 8. Then new business. We'll talk to the, I guess, the motion for the funding of an additional 6 police officers.
It's just a notification.
Mayor
and
Brown, you want to elaborate on that, please?
All I want to do is give notification, and that it would be vetted through the Standing Committee for Protective and Emergency Services, and that we vetted through our Finance and Administration Department. Find the money.
Committee okay with that? Councillor Drown?
Sure, like that, I mean, that's a great idea. You know, so you're just wanting to talk about it at the next meeting, right? And have some background information on it, what it's gonna take for the budgets, upcoming
Correct.
budgets, if we can't find it. Maybe there might be a way to get a few this year
Yeah.
if we're looking good, and maybe add some next year, right? So you're just opening the possibility of having a discussion, right?
To build on what was, again, going back to Councillor Duran, going back to the meeting last night that was at Birchwood Junior High School, it was quite clear that the police chief and his staff were, you know, they're understaffed, and we need more boots on the ground, and I think this is a way for us to respond by starting to search through the books, search through the finances of our municipal government, and see if we can make it happen. If not, and if I can just say this, I did have a discussion with our Director of Community Services about a letter coming from FPEIM, Federation of Prince Edward Island Municipalities. They're asking for more funding from the province. But speaking to others in the community, I think the city of Charlottetown, which is a fully serviced community, we should be making our own proposal to government to get more access to the taxation that they collect from our property taxes. Because as you know, Councillor Dron, we only have one source of revenue when it comes to taxation. That's property taxes. The fiscal firepower with the province is personal income tax, corporate income tax, consumption tax, excise tax, inheritance tax, and you know what, by the way? Property tax.
How
So-
much do they get? We get
Well,
of the dollar.
I think what I'd like to do is that I've been speaking to a former CAO who presented a brief to the Royal Commission on Land and Governance back in 2009. We did find his brief, and he's reviewing that brief and the recommendations that were made in that report, or that report from the Royal Commission on Land and Governance. And I think we have to put together our own case to make sure that we get a better share of taxation, because we know that we're being stretched. Like, look at our fire. They're still in arbitration. We don't know where that's going to go. Look at our public works, parks and recreation, water and wastewater. Like, we're being stretched from every point of the stars. So I think it's time that we start putting together a case of a more equitable share of taxation when it comes to collection of property taxes.
Councillor Drown.
Thank you. Through the chair, through the mayor, I agree 100% with you. There's great points there. You know, with the meeting last night, it was stated that the police were, whether it's underfunded or the least funded across Canada or whatever it was. I didn't catch that part. It's just that we're underfunded per data of people. I wonder, like, does that include, you know, we have 40 or some thousand in the city of Charlottetown, and we have a certain police force. What numbers are they comparing that to? Is that like Prince Edward Island as a whole island of policing, or is it just the city with 40? And are we similar to Truro or other small communities? That's the question I was going to ask upcoming meeting. So I think if you're putting the motion to talk about it for next month, there should be some information of what we're comparing. Are we comparing apples to apples? Because, you know, a 35 to 45,000 member city soon blooms to 55,000 with other people coming into the city, whether it's to work or stay, you know. So our police department, if it's based on the 34 to 45,000, every weekend or conventions, it can bloom up, right? So that's where the numbers, you know, to say we're underfunding or we don't have the manpower. I just want comparables that if we could get them. Thank you.
I also, just to chime in, I think, you know, the timing could be good too. We can, you know, we have to continue to press the province on this, you know, on this funding piece for this service. You know, it's, no, it's good to take to the table, I think, for sure.
I agree. I think if residents had to choose between services being cut or us being able to maintain services, not operate in a deficit budget, we need to really make this a priority to go and access more of that tax-based dollar.
Okay, thank you for that. And then just the last item, Betty, if you could speak to the overpayment that of tax revenue that we received from the province, and what the plan is to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, there was a $3 million overpayment from the province to the city that happened during 22-23, and we knew about it at the time of the budget, and that was taken into consideration when we projected our surplus for the current year. And in August, the province sent a letter out indicating what their plan, what they were proposing to ask for from municipalities as far as repaying it. They did not start recouping the amount back from us at the beginning of this year. They are going to wait until January of 2024. So they are letting us keep that $3 million, and they will be recouping it 1/24 every month until the end of 2025. So rather than us having to directly pay it back to them, they will just reduce the amount that they pay to us monthly. So monthly, they pay us 1/12 of our property taxes, and a portion of the property taxes that we're talking about wanting more of, that comes to us, they call it the municipal tax credit. So that shows up on our budget being called the property tax credit, and that's the portion of the provincial taxes that we get. So they give us about $5 million a month, and they will reduce that by $127,000 per month for 24 months, starting in January for 2 years. Now, there are municipalities who are very concerned about this repayment. A number of municipalities had questioned the province on what seemed to be higher than they were expecting payments during 22-23, and they were assured that the payments were correct. And so some of the municipalities say that they've spent that money and they don't have it to repay. So there are concerns there, and there are folks that are wanting to put together an argument saying that we shouldn't have to repay it. It's a provincial error, and we shouldn't have to repay it.
Betty, could I ask you, Mr. Chair, could I ask her a question?
Mayor Brown?
What are your thoughts about the miscalculation? Is it an error on our part, or is it an error on their part? Does that really matter? What's your professional opinion?
It's an error on their part. It puzzles me how you could make an error of that magnitude and take that long to find it, especially when you were being questioned on it. But well, and interestingly, they kept, like through all of the last fiscal year, we were paid $5.3 million, and that included this overpayment every month. But they continued to pay us the $5.3 million up until the end of July. So if they knew there was an error, why did they keep paying us the same amount? I don't know. Anyway, they've now reduced our monthly payment. We now get $5 million a month, and that will pay us our full municipal property taxes and the portion of the provincial taxes. And they've given us a calculation showing how that all works. And they've given us a spreadsheet showing how the recouping will work starting in January of 2024. It makes sense to me what they're trying to do. As you all know, I'm not an islander. I'm still getting used to the idea that property taxes are not raised here a little bit every year. That's the environment I come from. And so the whole thing about saying we have to go to the province for more money, like.
Just raise your taxes. But could I ask, Betty, could I ask this question through the chair? So if you go to your property taxes non-commercial assessment, the assessed value of residential was $2,367 million, apartments $467 million, times 0.67 cents, right? Per $100. Do we know where the miscalculation was? Had they told you? Okay, so instead of like, I don't like to be a free willy about just giving the money per month, because I looked at the payment. It's $127,000 less every month. Like, they have to show us where it was lost, or where was the miscalculation, so that we can go back to our books. And I think that's what the chair said when this was first brought to his attention. Did our former manager of finance not pick it up, or was it something that only the payer, in this case, the provincial government, miscalculated something and we're getting penalized for it. Is that clear? You're a smart woman. Smart person. So, Mr. Chair, all I'm asking is that we have PEI residents non-commercial assessment. We have non-residents. Now, just remember, if you're a non-resident, you pay $1.50 per 100. And if you're a resident, you get the 50-cent credit. That's how it works. So there's where we're losing more revenue, because that $1.50 for the non-residents, the province is keeping that 50 cents, not us. It doesn't come to us. And you know what? If I'm wrong on that, I'd be glad to say that I was wrong, but I'm sure that the 50 cent that is kept there because of a non-resident, that 50 cents goes directly to the province's coffers. And then we have commercial assessment, and it says general $631 million times 236. So our assessed value is $2.36 per 100. But I believe the province is $1.50. So can we find that out too, Betty?
Yes, through the chair to your worship, I will see if I can get that information, because they have provided that information for this year. And I imagine they did for last year too. I just, with our staff turnover, it's hard to keep track of who got which piece of information and where it is now. Nobody in finance at the moment is aware of where it is. It's likely something that Nancy McRae got, but I don't know where she's kept it. But I'm sure I can get in touch with somebody at the province and get that.
And just a last question, Mr. Chair. Commercial assessment general. General is 631 million. Apartments, 4 million. Hotels, 5 million. And then mobile homes is at 30,000. But or mobile home parks, that's, I guess, for office space that would be on those mobile home parks. And what do we get from that? We get about $15.1 million from commercial. So if the province is collecting $1.50 plus our 236, they'd be getting about 10 million there too, correct?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but that sounds correct.
Yeah. Can we just get those numbers? Numbers makes the world go round. Thank you.
And also, like to think, Betty, it probably goes without saying that going forward, I'd like to think that with the skill set, yourself and your team, that going forward, that if they don't catch it, something like this again, that we would. Anyway, the way you describe it, we are in a position to be able to deal with the terms that are being proposed, but
Mr. Chair, again, I wouldn't be just open to just send it down a check every month. I think we have to find out where is the discrepancy on. We get our numbers. Where are their numbers to show that the discrepancy occurred on our side, or was it on their side? Let's find that out first. Wow. And I know other municipalities are writing rebuttal letters to the province about this issue. So if we don't do anything, they'll just take the money and run.
Well, but I think in that letter that we've received from the province, there's a default repayment thing that's already in play, I think.
Yes, the default repayment schedule is over 2 years, from 24 to 25.
That's in place, so there's nothing to negotiate there.
What's that?
We're not writing a check.
They just take it from our taxes. No, I understand that, but instead of just allowing it to happen without showing the proof of where the default came from, then that's information that will be valuable to us. Thank you.
Again, but the 127s are happening in the meantime. All right, motion to adjourn. So moved, seconded. Mayor Brown, thank you. Thank you.